What's going on, guys? Sorry about that. I wanted to start this on time because I said I would start at 4:40, but I am actually going to run over and grab a glass of water, and then I'll kick it off. So give me one moment. All right, sorry about that delay. We're back. Hope you guys are still with me. Looks like you are. We have a 9 or 10 in here. What's going on, everyone? What's up? Sugar Spa, Jorge, Buga, D. Callahan, what's up, WG, and Luke. I'm on time today, guys. My sleep schedule, I finally got it right. After 2 trial and errors of trying to launch that podcast and staying up all night to get them back into a normalized schedule, which is great, and it's good for me. It's good for you guys as well. So anyways, I want to cover a few things today. I didn't get to put the description on the YouTube yet, but obviously looking at Bitcoin in terms of a play, I want to talk a little bit. I posted this in the trading strategy channel. I'm not going to cover that right here. But I want to talk about exposure and kind of how for the last week or now 2 weeks, primarily been looking at these alt shorts, right? This one, Litecoin, is the one that's already ran a nice chunk in the right direction. XRP hitting the partial target last night. And then ETH also moving slightly in the right direction, pretty much still at entry, but pretty short on those or short on those 4 alt trades. I think that's really the only place to be making money in alts right now is by shorting some of them on MEX. Besides kind of the really small pops. And if you're playing any of the other pops on other altcoins, the liquidity is going to be so small to me right now, it doesn't even make sense. So past that, just kind of keeping in mind that I'm short on those altcoins and that correlations are still high between Bitcoin and alts, right? The way that those alts continue to make money is one or two ways, right? It's either Bitcoin hangs out kind of above this 6K, as long as fear kind of hangs out in the market and optimism is kind of gone in the market, it continues to be more of a risk off, more of, more outflows or kind of more consolidation. I continue to think that all these alts will bleed out, and I think they're going to drop a lot faster than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been pretty flat, and they're still dropping against Bitcoin. So the one scenario where I think those short alt trades don't go so well is if Bitcoin does bounce. Let's say it gets up, and in the next kind of major resistance level that I'm watching for Bitcoin to test is going to be this 6.6 level, right? It's just based off this level was the previous major support. Now I'm expecting it to now be that major resistance. So pretty much 6.6 up to about 6.8, right? You could call this one big zone depending on if you're using dailies, right? If we're looking at smaller time frames, I'm looking at anything from about 656 to up to 6600. If we are able to bounce up to this level, especially if we're able to pass it, that'd be pretty bullish for not only Bitcoin, also for the entire space. I think it would encourage a lot more people to take some risks, and I think we would see some money flow back into altcoins, and altcoins actually rally against Bitcoin and probably appreciate. So the one scenario where my kind of trades right now, which are doing pretty well, would go bad, just keeping in mind how exposed I am, kind of think about what this means for you and your strategy, is if Bitcoin does bounce, right? I think those shorts would get pretty ugly. Taking that into account, and also kind of thinking about how Bitcoin now on the daily has hung above this level now, this February low. That's where I'm getting this yellow from. I guess I could delete that. This is the February low. This is pretty much 6,000. You can see the daily candles respecting that level. To me, another example of this, or a time in the past when this happened, when you can see a major support being respected, wicks are going through this 6.6 level back here in April, but all of the candles are closing above. That's kind of what we're seeing right now for Bitcoin, looking at this 6,000 support level. So we did have the one-day sell through to 5,700, right? But that's a nice sign for me. To me, that's Bitcoin still at support. A nice way that I can maybe hedge if Bitcoin is to bounce, since I have 3 or 4 of these short trades open on the alts on BitMEX, one way that I can get a little bit closer to neutral, or also probably benefit, let's say I think that the bear trend does continue, or we possibly do go a little bit lower, right? There definitely hasn't been a reversal yet. I think even if there is a little bit of a reversal, I think EOS, with the struggles they're having, where's it at? I think EOS, I think ETH, and Litecoin could all pretty much drop anyways, back to at least where they were mid-April. I mean, we're not even looking at April lows. That's 30 or 40% off. So I still think Litecoin, and a couple of these major alts would still drop anyways, even if Bitcoin bounced up. I think they would probably bounce up as well, but I think they continue to drift lower. But the one way I could hedge, those kind of trades going against me would be to look at a Bitcoin play up to at least kind of this 6.6 level, right? So that's kind of the one play that I'm contemplating today, and it's more of just an exposure thing of, what's my downside now, right? I'm gonna make more Bitcoin if Bitcoin drops, or if we continue to have the sluggishness, we continue to consolidate, and alts continue to drop. I'll be wrong, and then those kind of shorts go against me. If Bitcoin bounces, risk returns to the market, people's optimism returns to the market, and I think alts would rebound as well. So to kind of protect against that, at least short term, and play the bounce, I'm going to be probably looking to play that in Bitcoin. And then kind of bigger picture, where the trend still is, I pretty much still want to be short on those alts, as we've already been able to lock in profits on Ripple and Litecoin, still waiting for EOS and ETH, which I think will take longer. So that's what my trading post was about. Past that, I still don't think any individual, I'm really not going to look at any individual alt plays past something that I can short on BitMEX. For right now, to me, the risk reward just doesn't make sense. ICOs, I brought up that one of the most interesting points about ICOs, about ICOs back in, what was it, September to November, when alts were doing pretty poorly. When alts were doing pretty poorly, this was, all the way through October, down to pretty much the beginning of December, alts were getting crushed. But what was interesting was, all the ICOs that I got into during that period that maybe hit the market and slumped a little bit, and I'm looking at Request, Enigma, Syndicator, 3 or 4 others, Archain. Right when kind of that bull run started again, projects that were super under the radar, Archain comes to mind. I mean, they took off. I bet Archain's in the top 100 now, right? And that was a super low key ICO, and those things ended up doing at least 10x, all in US dollar value, 3 or 4 of them in Bitcoin value as well. So an interesting point. I still think I'm a little bit not too optimistic, or still a little bit cautious, a little bit bearish, I guess you could even say, in terms of ICOs that are going to hit the market right now. But keeping in mind, ICOs are going to perform as well as the alt market's performing. So if alts are sluggish right now, that does kind of create an opportunity where, back in March, it created an opportunity where really hot ICOs that were getting raised in January were hitting a slumped market, and we could pick them up on IDEX for cheap, and that was the Tomo and Loom play. Now we're kind of back in a slump period of raising, where you might have more opportunities to get into projects that aren't as hyped, and then hopefully by the time they actually do release tokens or do hit market, or even if they do hit market a little bit early, it could, a month later or right after that is kind of when they take off. It creates an opportunity where you can probably get into projects a lot easier than trying to get into projects, I don't know, from December to January, where it was pretty much one of the toughest time periods to get allocations ever. So that's my only real thoughts there. The only update that I had in terms of the ICO front, still don't have an individual name that I like past the Midas play that I made, was Crypto Curve. And I actually liked Crypto Curve. I'm going to put this up on the screen. I actually like Crypto Curve. It's an interesting project. It's a user interface, which I think way more platforms, protocols need to focus on UX. Interesting UX here. In fact, it's kind of like a Midas, but for WAN chain. It's pretty cool. And they have a new feature called Nuke Your Portfolio, which you're going to be able to convert all your Bitcoins or all your shitcoins, I guess you could say, into ETH, BTC, or a stablecoin. That's actually really cool. And then you could kind of convert them back. So that's a really cool user interface thing. They're also going to have pretty much a Midas foundation as well for pooling into ICOs and all these kind of different things. So pretty cool project. But, and this isn't a bad thing, I thought they were generating some really nice hype. But still kind of not enough hype that it was. There's kind of a sweet spot, I think, for hype. Not enough hype where there's 60,000 people in the Telegram and now you have no shot of getting in. To me, it seemed like a nice amount of organic hype. And then today I just received a DM from two actually different community managers at Crypto Curve, both offering to pay me for a tweet. So I just want to keep that in mind. Maybe that growth or that hype isn't so organic. It's not a bad thing when projects do that. I think a lot of people kind of think that's a negative thing. Paid tweets or all that. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's probably the smartest ways for any of these projects to gain notoriety or to gain some hype or to gain awareness. But it was just kind of something to keep in mind of, wow, maybe this isn't so organic. They might just be spending a lot of money on paying for tweets. But minimum 100 ETH. Yeah, so we'll see. I need to break this down. I do think it's interesting. It's kind of not the big play that I'm looking for. If it's a small enough raise, I think it could be interesting. But it's pretty much the exact same thing, almost as Midas to me. Midas was a really small raise. WG said, "What do you think of the market structure that developed today concerning shorts, rower tracks for EOS, W for Litecoin?" Yeah, sometimes, and I'm kind of pausing here on how I would answer that. Sometimes, because I think it's really helpful to look at all those things. It's so helpful to look at both positioning, market structure, sentiment, everything, right? But I also don't want to get too kind of carried away and maybe a derivative of what's going to help me make my decision. I kind of always want to keep in mind, what am I basing my decision off of, and not. I kind of want to base my decision off kind of the root of the analysis, right? So maybe not an analysis of an analysis. And the only thing I mean by that, WG, is if a setup is clean enough for me, so suppose it's EOS, suppose it's Litecoin, I don't want to worry too much about kind of positioning and how many people might be getting short and different things like that. So I don't know. If I'm looking at it from a technical standpoint, EOS to me, this still looks pretty good in terms of a short. Now it's kind of hanging out below this resistance. It's not a clear break. I guess you could say that this level is really kind of that resistance, and that we haven't kind of clearly broke and closed below that on the daily 2 consecutive times. We kind of bounced right there. But I still like my positioning in EOS. Exact same thing for Litecoin. Litecoin's kind of the biggest win yet, or the biggest win so far. And then ETH as well was another one that this morning looked a little bit sketchier, but to me, that's a pretty clean break of this major fib support. And I think that we at least move kind of this 5% lower. I don't think ETH has, and I'm basing that off of connecting this bottom to this bottom, extending out, and that also kind of lines up with the mid-trade support that I see here, right? And this is around, what, 0.067. The real target for this is going to be down about 10 or 11%, but I think just like Litecoin, there's kind of one area mid-trade that I want to take some profits on. Right. So I don't think it's too concerning. I think it's slightly concerning that everyone thinks it is an easy short. So in that sense, yes, I agree with you. It's concerning, but I like my plays, and I kind of have conviction still in that story of as long as Bitcoin kind of hangs out here and bleeds, especially because we still have a few days until the end of the month here, at least until tomorrow, until the last trading day. So I still like how I'm positioned there. If anything, I might be looking to hedge into some of those September longs if I can kind of snipe them right when we get to the bottom of this, right around the 6K is when I might move into some September lows for Bitcoin to kind of swing in there. And that'll be a nice hedge in case these alt shorts do go the other way. That's kind of how that's how I'm playing it. Either way, it's going to kind of allow me to build at least a small position to a September long. So that's what I'm looking at. WG, not too concerning, but it is slightly concerning. It doesn't kind of change my view on the plays. Guys, that's all I have today. Today's stream is a little bit shorter, and like I said, it's a bit of a slower trading day for me today. I had to record that live podcast this morning, and not gonna lie, talking this much in a day is it's tough to do. Tough to plan out a few hours of video stuff. But for the rest of the week, I have no more podcast stuff, so that's good. How do you think the futures contract expiring this week will affect the price, Sugar Spa? It's been back and forth. I think very, very early, the futures expiring were kind of a clear. It seemed to be almost a clear case of, you could say, this is cause and effect. It's clearly pushing prices down towards expiration. Past that, there's been other times where they kind of moved up on moved down after expiration even. So, pardon me. When they first started, kind of the first CME and the other futures contracts expiring, it was bottoming out and then pretty much popping right after they expired. Past that, though, past the first few cases, I lined it up. I put this in Bitcoin Trade Analysis one day. I lined it up. There was a few times after that consecutively where even after kind of the futures expiring, they continued to move down. So it hasn't been anything conclusive yet where I would say, right after the futures close, we're going to get a pop. It's been a lot closer to kind of 50-50 or 60-40, Sugar Spa. I think it's a nice narrative, though. Whichever way price goes, I think it'll kind of, especially if price moves up, I think a lot of people are going to tie it to that. Crypto Bugle, what's your take on OKX? In regards to what? In regards to what, Bugle? The exchange? Jorge said, can you take a look at REN for short-term play? Where's REN trading still? I see what you mean. I see what you mean, Buga. Cool. Yeah, for REN, I can't really chart it. And honestly, just because, Jorge, just because it's actually pretty liquid. I'm surprised there. I could pull it up on Coinist actually. Let's see what we got. But for me personally, I'm just still staying away from really any short-term alt plays. This drop-off on REN, though, is pretty interesting. I guess because it just got listed on OKX. That makes sense. Now I'm seeing where you're coming from here. Completely spaced that it just got listed. Yeah, let me take a look here. Has it been on OKX? For some reason, it's only pulling price history since the 17th. Oh, 10 days. So if I'm to look at... It's been a little interesting how it's found some levels here. Not very consistent levels, to be honest. But if I'm looking at kind of this first resistance, then the support and then also this kind of major support here, and just extending that over. I think that's one level that's probably going to act as resistance even if it bounces. If I'm looking at just the immediate support where we're at right now, I think that one's pretty easy to spot as well. But quite honestly, I would really be viewing this as support. I would really kind of be viewing the support as from here, right? And then you can also see when we move below the support, you can see it act as resistance slightly, right? And then kind of support again. So if I'm looking over how that lines up with where we are currently, I wouldn't really be kind of calling this little capitulation area support. If I was looking for maybe the next support, it would probably be like down here. And kind of not right there. I would be viewing this also as resistance. So if I was to move into Ren, when was that? This was early April. Yeah, I still kind of wouldn't try to catch that knife. Even that massive sell. Just for me personally, Jorge, I just still think it's kind of a really similar situation with Cork Chain and a few others. Now this does, I mean, that's a massive sell-off. Just like so many other coins, I think if you buy really a lot of these prices, any of these prices of a coin that's going to be around for the next 6 months, I think if you buy it in the next 3 or 6 months, you're going to be rewarded. But right now, it's like Cork Chain, whereas if I can wait a day or move a little bit slower, right, I just think the trend right now is on your side. You have about 10 or 15% up until kind of that next resistance. And honestly, kind of waiting and seeing how it reacts, since the trend is in your favor, it's kind of expected, or the probability that you'll be lower tomorrow is higher when you're in a downtrend. So it's almost like you benefit from waiting, even if it's closer to like 50-50, just because the trend is lower, or the trend is heading lower. Right? I don't think it'd be a bad idea to scale in if I really had high conviction in Ren. If this was kind of one of my high conviction plays. Right now I'm still kind of focusing on Aura and Tomo. But if I was to move into Ren, yeah, I think I would definitely start scaling in here. For a lot of these coins, I'm surprised by how strong that volume is and how liquid it is. I guess OKX helps. I would move in there, set some more bids down here as well, but I want to be patient with it. So that's how I'd play it. I would definitely, I mean, that's a pretty massive candle. That's got to be a 10% candle. 40% candle on the 4 hour. What just happened here? 40%, 30% in the last 8 hours. Did something happen to Ren, guys? Or maybe just someone dumped a few nodes. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, a 40% drop in 8 hours, that's enticing, but you can also see kind of what happened here. I think you will get relief off of a sell-off like that. If I were in a position, if it was a high conviction play, I would scale in some here, but I would honestly kind of wait. Exactly. Probably a good time to get a master node. I think everything is cheap. If it's a longer term play, I think everything is cheap right now. I would still be moving slow on alts. That's just still how I'm playing them. Right? I do think it's an incredible time. I do not want to downplay that. I think it's an incredible time. If we're looking at buy markets percentages, if we're looking at how most alts are valued, they're either at December lows or at April lows, kind of our two previous cycle lows. They're both right there. I think the only ones that aren't attractive are major pairs, are kind of these larger cap alts. I still think they're pretty expensive. I think everything else is pretty cheap. But with the trend going against you, I don't think a lot of trades are appetizing. I do think longer term plays and accumulating some alts, if you have high conviction in them, I think that will win. I think that's setting yourself up to have a really nice kind of 3 or 6 months out. Just basing it off history. Question about Litecoin. Kamal said, if it hasn't been covered already, is it still a good idea to get into the Litecoin short at this time? If so, it's a good stop. For me personally, I kind of think the Litecoin play is a little bit late. Now we're kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 6 days into the drop. You know, I think this one's a little bit mid-trade, right? If I was looking to kind of the entries 138 or 14, and I'm looking, to me it feels a little bit mid-trade, right? If I'm playing this range, K-Mall, this is kind of the areas I want to be shorting up in the 1-4. If I'm breaking into thirds, I like to look at ranges in thirds. Or halves as well. You can do halves. I think thirds are kind of more attractive. There's going to be this, so I can get the right color here. There's going to be this neutral zone where I don't think anything's attractive. If I'm just looking at price action for a range across any asset, right, I'm going to view kind of the bottom of the range is where I want to be buying, the top of the range is where I want to be selling, and then anything in the middle is usually kind of a no trade or neutral zone. To me, I think we're kind of in that middle third for the Litecoin play. I think if I was looking for a short on a major, I see what you mean, bounce up to the top third. Yeah, I think a level, I'll put it this way, I think the first level that I would think is still attractive for a short on Litecoin, I think 132 up to this 1.4 area is kind of like a little mid-trade resistance, right? If we've seen how this has worked out in the past, there we are. If we see how this has worked out in the past, last time we kind of moved down through here, we have bounced and then played almost a mid-trade resistance and then move lower. That's pretty much what's happening again. Right? Litecoin finally got a little bit of relief. So if you could load up, if we're looking at where that worked last time, if you could kind of load up in the 132, 134 area, I don't think that's too bad. I think that does put you kind of right there on the line of that top third. So yeah, I think 132 to 134 is where I'd be looking to play it. And I'd be setting that target still kind of, I'm targeting the 105 area. My trade setup is void past kind of this 147. That's where I'd be wrong. For something like that, that's where I think it's just riskier to kind of take this trade because your risk reward gets a little bit closer to break even or to 50-50. Because if you're saying you're wrong kind of above where I think kind of that major support was, and then your target is kind of that same area, that's just a little bit close to kind of, I just went to Tron. It's a little bit closer to 50-50 for me. If I was looking at a short to still get into and kind of what I'm looking that I still kind of want to add to when I get a chance, I think ETH right now is a little, I think ETH and EOS both haven't fully confirmed, but I think they're also the two richest. So if I'm looking at them, I think ETH kind of right below this support, kind of consolidating, hanging out below, and it looks like it's already done some small retests. I think that's pretty attractive. I also think EOS as well, but these are also, in my opinion, kind of two of the riskier shorts, just because these could be fake outs and they kind of haven't fully broke. I think Void talked about this earlier, and I like how he said it. They haven't fully broke market structure in the sense that, you know, this kind of could, there's two areas. There's an area on ETH as well where this kind of, I would qualify that as support as well. So right now they are consolidating it under resistance. I like it. And there's been some small retests and movements down, but I think ETH and EOS are the two richest. I think they're also the two riskier shorts. Litecoin's just kind of already, it's the one that's started moving the most in the right direction. That's how I'm kind of playing it. For Tron, I wanted to do a setup for you guys there, but it's nothing too high conviction there yet. If I could snag it and my trading view messed up again. If I could snag it at 660, I would take it, but for me, it's not the most convincing short. I'd kind of rather trade the majors on there right now and not Tron. Even though that might be a popular short. But that's all I got, guys. Hopefully that Bitcoin hedge makes a little bit of sense and kind of what I'm looking for there. It's more of an exposure thing. I also think okay, let's play the game of, I can't talk today. Talk too much about mining. Let's say play the game of the futures actually do have a pretty big effect on price, and you know, we kind of have bottomed out, or we do consolidate or accumulate in this area. it's also kind of, I think it's still a nice area to buy in fiat. That's kind of why I think a low leverage play, especially if it helps my exposure, that's just kind of why I'm looking into that. Gosh, I can't even connect a thought. Talk too much. But that's all I got, guys. Sorry, the stream was a little bit more scattered than my one yesterday or the day before. Didn't have the most time to put an outline together, but that's what I got. I want to do a stream every single day, anyways, to get the questions answered. Hopefully that makes sense on the Bitcoin play I'm considering. None of the shorts really need to change yet. I'm just being patient on them, locking in the profits on the next one that drops. That's just how I'm playing it. So that's all I got. Hopefully everyone's having a good week. Halfway through the week, the weeks are flying. Take some time off, enjoy the weather, make sure you're taking care of yourself, because guys, when things do return, they're going to return quickly. So that's all I got. I'm signing off.